case from our files.
Enjoy the rest of the broadcast.
Hola. Welcome
to the
Sinister Ministries 3, otherwise on Sinister Mysteries program with Joey and this guy, Craig, who has now joined the program full time.
That's
for
right.
Anybody that missed the announcement the last time.
Yeah, so you're going to be seeing, at least for right now, quite a bit of Sinister Mysteries week in and week out. There are a couple of Into the Outer Realms, but by and large, other than 2 episodes back to back, I'm doing an episode solo with Reverend Michael Carter. We're talking about exopolitics. If there is life, allegedly, let's practice. Let's all practice. If there's allegedly other intelligent life in the universe and we go out into said universe to colonize or mine or whatever.
Like Thetans?
There will be politics there. Yeah.
If there's other life out there like Thetans?
Allegedly. Allegedly. So, folks, this is just the reality. I actually had been studying, Craig, L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons for like literally decades, or as Scientologists tend to say, literally. So
yes,
after watching 12 hours of documentaries, typically anyone who's grown up in Scientology, including Tom Cruise, including Leah Remini, say literally. And I know some people do say that, and maybe it's just a rich person affectation, but I found it very interesting. But anyway, I had no idea. Let me just say, I had no idea how much of a classic cult the testimony from alleged truthful people really makes this. Like, I was stunned.
And just for anybody that doesn't understand, it may seem annoying, but when you deal with this topic specifically, I mean, we'll get through it to the show. It was brilliant. They're connected in almost all facets of society. And so it's one of those things, if you just come out and say, even though it's like freedom of speech, it's your opinion. If you do not say these are alleged, accusations, these are something like that. If you do not phrase things in this way, you will get cease and desist. You will get, stuff that will just come out of the woodworks, and they will go all in and just harp on you. So it's one of those things. That's why I apologize in advance for everybody. But yeah, Joey and me are going to be saying a lot of, allegedly this is what they do. And it's not that we're soft and we don't want a thing. It's one of those, if you'd like to watch this show in the future, we better say allegedly, or else it's going to be.
Yeah. And I think we're through our probation now. I know it was mid-February sometime, and kind of shame on me for not knowing the exact date. But really, no, I've come armed with a lot of data. Some of the data is just public record. It's out there. Mm-hmm. We're going to give you lots of sources to go out on your own. So tonight is an episode where I'm going to go wide instead of deep, because there are so many facets. I don't want to cover the fast. And also, the deeper you go, the more trouble potentially you can get into. So and
I live about an hour and 15 minutes away from corporate headquarters of this place.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And Tanya, like, when she did her training, she was right there in Clearwater.
Yep, Clearwater.
That she worked for. Yeah, crazy. Although they're everywhere. So let's, we're going to give you as many facts as we can, and then tell you what other people have said. Journalists, insiders. It's stunning to me, Craig. I don't know of another organization where so many high-level people left and talked so in depth about what they did. There's a guy named Mike Rinder who was basically their head of sort of the Ministry of Truth. He was the guy who brought the hammer, and he's right alongside Leah Remini, and it gets very tense sometimes on the show. But anyway, Scientology was founded in 1953 by a guy named L. Ron Hubbard. Now, this guy was he sold his books, but almost everyone agrees that he was not a great science fiction writer. He was not
prolific. Ridiculously prolific. Yeah. I mean, he's probably would be up there as like one of the all-time leading authors of books if you actually discredited him with every single story he had crafted.
Yeah, and oftentimes you're giving up quality for quantity. So I've somehow managed and gotten published 18 books in my lifetime. We're talking like a lot of books. So who was this L. Ron Hubbard? Here's what we know, and it becomes problematic almost from the beginning. He was in the United States Navy, so of course there's a lot of records, and there's records that you can get your hands on. He was in the United States Navy from 1941 to 1946, so this is World War II. He was in the Naval Reserve, and he was a lieutenant junior grade, and he started out in PR. So Craig, this makes sense. I mean, he was a brilliant marketing and PR guy. I mean, absolutely like genius level, like many cult leaders are. So he gets command of a sub chaser off the coast of California. And in May 1943, he claims that he attacks 2 Japanese subs off the Oregon coast. So, of course, this is a big deal. Would there be Japanese subs off the Oregon coast? We have heard, legends that there were Japanese subs that parked off the coast. And we know, obviously, that the Japanese attacked Hawaii. Anyway, the Navy investigates. They find no subs. What they find is an underwater magnetic deposit that he sent torpedoes after, and a log. So L. Ron Hubbard was relieved of command. This is all public record. This is all freedom of information. No speculation here. Then he is assigned to San Diego, where he decides to order gunnery practice on an island off of the Mexican coast. So now the United States had to issue a public apology to Mexico. There was no authorization for him to do that, and he lost that command. 1945 into February 46, he's in Oak Knoll Naval Hospital, being treated for ulcers and eye problems. He's got conjunctivitis, and he has ulcers. He gets a medical discharge, so not an honorable, not a discharge, just medical discharge, like you're no longer able to do your duties. Now, as time went on, both he and his organization, Scientology, fabricated a lot of things about him. So you can look up the medals that he supposedly got. You can look up his war record where he actually was wounded in combat.
I mean, think North Korean general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just picture those ones where, the North Korean generals that their entire chest is just covered in medals and stuff. I mean, this is basically... This is what it looks like. I mean, it's just like the dictator that awards themselves all sorts of, accommodations. I mean, it's just crazy. I wish I could find a photo. I did show up real quick, but yeah, it's if you find it, it's pretty amazing. It's like,
oh, the photo of all the medals.
Yeah, it's like patting yourself on the back.
From foreign organizations, the Purple Heart was altered. So these journalists and lawyers went back to Scientology and they said, we don't believe that any of this is real. And they said, here's the deal. All of his records have been sheep dipped. So they all look at each other and they go, what's sheep dipped? And they're like, all his records have been altered and sealed because he was naval intelligence. Like, that's the game. That's the game.
Yep.
Like, how can you prove? Like, my dad was naval intelligence, and it took him 10 years to prove where he was and what he did so that he could get his benefits for Agent Orange. So these things are real. My dad experienced it. He experienced it because as a guy in the Navy, he should not have been the places where he was and shouldn't have been exposed to what he was exposed to. So it was a whole big thing. So this fascination with the Navy kind of continues on. There is a letter, you can find it, where he wrote to the Veterans Administration asking for help with his mental health. That he knew he wasn't right and he needed some help. As far as we know from the records, he did not get that help. So in the late 1940s, he hooks up with Jack Parsons. Now, we could do a whole show on Jack Parsons. He was called the Antichrist Superstar. He was a student of Aleister Crowley. He started his own lodge, the OTO. But he was also a brilliant scientist who had military contracts because he worked for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So super, super interesting guy. Twin Peaks, especially in their dossiers and in all of their backstory that Mark Frost wrote, folded in Jack Parsons and Hubbard, and kind of went along with the fact that maybe Hubbard was intelligence. So they, amongst all the things that they did something called a Babylon working. And this was a sex magic ritual. Remember, Aleister Crowley was all about sex magic rituals. And the idea was to spawn the Antichrist. So what ultimately happens, long story short, because it's not what the show is about tonight, Hubbard skips town with Parsons' girlfriend and 10 grand. And that's where he moves to the creation, basically, of religion. Craig, should I keep going? You have anything?
No. I was just the only thing, like, for numbers, we talked about everything. L. Ron Hubbard, he's credited with 250 novels and over 1,000, up to 1,000 works. So just kind of put that in there. Like I said, doesn't mean that they're high quality things, but he's known as one of the most prolific authors of all time.
Yeah, and when you're in, you have to read so much of that, and you have to buy it. It reminds me of the all-time best-selling book of all time, I think, is Chairman Mao's Little Red Book, because everybody in China is required to buy it. It's the same kind of thing. So here's what Hubbard said. Go ahead, brother.
No, I was just gonna say real quick before we go there, one of the things, like, I don't know if you found anything different about it, but I want to tell a lot of people, there's a lot of people that claim that it was formed from a bet. And there's not really, I was just gonna say, there's not really anything, like I said, I'll let you finish that thing, but there's nothing that really, like, even I could find that shows any validity that truly was how it formed. It was from a bet. That a lot of it was, that a lot of it's conjecture. But like I said, I'm hoping you found something.
Well, I'm going to name some names of some pretty connected people who also said it. So Hubbard said this: writing for a penny a word is ridiculous. If a man really wants to make $1 million, the best way would be to start of his own religion. Now, this was allegedly said at a writers' conference, and there is no evidence of that. You're right, Craig. But parts and pieces of this quote can be found in other places.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
John W. Campbell Jr., who was the editor of Astounding Magazine and then Analog Magazine, who L. Ron Hubbard wrote for a lot, was supposedly the guy that he made the bet with in Bayhead, New Jersey. And this is also, and I'll give you guys the details when I get there, this is also in an interview with his son that was in Penthouse Magazine in, I believe, 1983, where the kid says the same thing. And again, he was estranged from his son, so can you believe the son? I don't know. Harlan Ellison, very famous, wrote episodes of Star Trek, was a prolific short story writer. He heard about the bet and talked about it. Another author, Lloyd Arthur Eschbach, in his memoir, says that Hubbard told him religion is where the money is. So this is in this guy's memoir. Again, I found that. Like you said, where it's like, because that's that's a well-known saying too. It's like the fastest way to become rich is start a religion. Yeah. And that's kind of like saying, because a lot of people, whenever you type in, was it a bet? It'll bring up that rumor that there was a bar bet between, I think it was Robert Heinlein. Is it that how you say his name? Yeah.
Heinlein?
Yeah.
that was the bar bet, that's what it was, and that's what they're based off. And they're like, well, there's no proof of that, but I could see the ones where, like you were saying, where they're like, well, I know I've seen, there's lots of references where there's I would say pretty compelling that there was something to it, that this was a way, like, I know how to become successful, and this is how I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, and he was already writing science fiction. That's all I'm gonna say. So in 1950, he comes out with Dianetics, the modern science of mental health. He promoted this as a psychological self-help system. So let's be clear here: there is no religion at this point. It's a psychological self-help system. The book failed financially. It just didn't catch on. He went to the American Medical Association. He went to the American Psychological Association, and they rejected it. They called him a quack. They said this was pseudoscience. There was nothing to it. This bred his animosity towards psychiatrists and a lot of facets of the medical field, pharmaceuticals and all of that kind of thing. If they had accepted him, maybe this story would have gone different. This is just my own postulation. I'm just throwing this out there. This isn't even allegedly. This is just Joey saying perhaps he went to the AMA and APA on purpose, knowing that he was going to be rejected. Because, Craig, we've done a lot of cults, and it's always us against them. Jim Jones is the big one, right? They're in Ghana, they're behind the wall. He's like, they're coming for us, so it's go time. So that's just it's a possibility. It's a possibility.
Well, I would play off of that and say that there is possibly that would be a great thing, because it would make sense, because then you could, just like you said, where you've been sheep dipped, where you could use these things, you could say, I'm onto something, but they know it threatens the normal, this threatens this, the approved science. So of course they're going to reject this. This is why they've cast this out. So, so that's why you've got to come in and see me, because I've got the truth that they don't want you to know about.
Right. So
and that's your hook.
Yeah. So whether he was whether he pivoted or whether that was the game, that's what happened. So someone in the audience says that Harlan Ellison said allegedly that Lester Del Rey told Hubbard allegedly that the whole starter religion thing. So there are these lures amongst those groups. Charles is asking, was Frank Herbert of Dune fame in that writer's cabal? Not that I found in my I'm not sure.
I mean, is it possible? Possibly. I mean, it's like, I'm sure, especially in that time, it's not like it was a really wide circle of people that were in this genre of like science fiction. So it would be pretty much, you probably would know most of the big time names.
Well put. They were all writing for Amazing Stories and Fade and Analog and these different things. So they were competing against each other, and they knew each other. So in 1965, and this just really came to light recently because of the allegations against Neil Gaiman, right? These horrific allegations against Neil Gaiman. His father, David, was in charge of the UK branch as media director, so basically in charge of the UK church by 1965. That's fascinating. What they're finding, and again, this is all alleged, and the courts are going to work it out. Some of the things that Neil Gaiman wrote in his books that are very dark about different kinds of abuses, people have come forward and said those are real things that his dad did to him, that he actually experienced. So, Craig, that's an important data point, because there is a pattern. There's a pattern here. There's a different pattern of abuses that go well beyond what a church should be. So, as Neil grew up and he grew older, he distanced himself from the church. So there's that. That's a very interesting data point there. So by the mid 60s, like with a lot of religious cults, the investigations come, the questions start to be answered. People start talking about what's going on, how they were lied to, how they had to escape from certain things. By the mid 1960s, there are investigations, and they're banned in some countries. Now, in the 1960s, 1970s, early 1980s, in several weeks, Craig and I are going to do what will be Sinister Ministries 4. and we're going to do the American Family, but we're going to do this group called Riel. And Riel got banned in a lot of places. Riel got banned in a lot of places. So it's the same kind of thing. LRH actually flees the United States. He goes to the UK. They're on his tail there. Finally, he buys a ship, and he basically lives at sea. He's back to his Navy roots, and this becomes really important because in 1967, he starts the Sea Org. Exactly. Who are the upper level clergy. They're the ministers. They're the auditors. Now, here, Craig, and I was talking to Tanya about this while we were having dinner. They're accused of paying slave wages.
Yes.
To me, that's a little bit of an inaccuracy. They're paid like $50 a week, and they work like 60, 70 hours a week. But as we'll see, to go through the auditing program, to buy the books, to go up to the levels, to try to get to the level of clear, and we'll unpack all of that as we go, costs somewhere between $250,000 and $360,000. So Sea Org is a work study scholarship kind of program. Plus, you're getting room and board. So
because you're I was saying it's kind of like, I mean, one way to look is just like you said, is it one face value? You look at it, it's like, yes, you're asking people to work 17, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for 50, that you said, yeah, but it's one of those things. If you can't pay the money that other people like the other celebrities can, well, this is a way that you can do this to pay for it as opposed. So you're basically, it's that fuzzy line of where is it slave labor and where is it willingly accepting the cost to achieve this enlightenment.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. It's all. Plus, you're signed a billion-year contract. Literally, folks. Like I didn't study. I didn't stutter. Look up the Sea Org contract. It's a $1 billion years contract. Yeah. Also, too, they wear faux U.S. Navy uniforms. So if you were to look at them, you'd go, "Oh, these are U.S. Navy officers, or they're from the Naval Academy." Ribbons, brands, braids, stripes. I find that kind of deplorable. I just kind of find that whole thing kind of deplorable. Tanya says some former Sea Org members say they worked as many as 19 hours per day. Yeah, it's definitely a fine line, but here's what Scientology would say. We're giving them all of these things: room, board, materials, clearing, auditing, schooling. There is no schooling. So kids that grow up in Scientology, there's no like homeschooling. It's only Scientology. That's it.
We talk about like this where we don't compare notes and stuff in there. I mean, where do you want to fit in this coming out of? I mean, I think we could continue where we are, but at some point, do we want to break into the way that they actually infiltrated society and just the mass? I mean,
we will.
As crazy it is, it's a master class in how to assimilate yourself into the thing to where people are not only don't reject it, they're just like, okay.
Yep. We definitely will, because that's really where the cult aspect lies. So yeah. I'll keep moving quickly. In 1977, though, 2 LA offices and 1 DC office are raided by the FBI. They find that, talk about infiltration, they had stolen documents and infiltrated and had spies placed in 176 U.S. government agencies. 11 people were indicted. The person who was in charge of this, it was called Guardian Command at the time, was actually his third wife, L. Ron Hubbard's third wife, Mary Sue. She spent a year in jail. And it took almost 4 years to get her there. And she sort of separated, but then she didn't. And she benefited when he died. Craig, they should have been shut down right there. I mean, they were just this educational, really at this point, they were just sort of an educational pseudoscience organization that had actually infiltrated 176 government agencies. Now, folks, go to You can do a search, and you don't have to go to Penthouse Magazine if you're weird about it. The Cult Education Institute has a copy of it. It's the L. Ron Hubbard Jr. Penthouse interview from June of 1983. Hear what he says about his father and his really, really dark practices, an extension of what he did with Jack Parsons, but also he will talk about, he says, his son alleges that he was an agent for Russia, that he was stealing documents, American documents for Russia. That's what his son alleges. So why were they not shut down at that time? I
think because like if you do a search, you look up. One of the things I did when I was doing my research, I said, "Are there any known politicians?" I was like going through here, and it most of the searches come up. No, there's no known, but that's one of the things that they're well known for is they infiltrate, like you said, those government agencies. But there are Scientologists in the FBI. See, they've infiltrated all these things, and so that's why when people say like, why have they been in here? Well, that's the masterclass part of it. It's almost like they knew in order to make sure that this never happens, we have to make sure these bases are covered, and so they put the people there first. And then they expand in there, and there's like, well, why didn't they get stopped? Well, because the person that would probably sign off on it was a Scientologist, and they're like, yeah, there's nothing here. And we'll get into one of the things with David Miscavige, with coming up here. The thing is, and that was one of the reasons, like people are like, why didn't the FBI get involved? Is because most likely people that were in charge of signing this off were probably part of the church, and they were just like, yep, there's nothing here.
They are a $1 billion enterprise. They have huge amounts of money. And apparently, L. Ron Hubbard wrote all these policies. That's what they are. That's what they always talk about. When you watch ex-Scientology executives who have left and now have spoken out, and Tanya, you'll be interested in this. Someone said that Mike Rinder recently passed away. Is that they talk about the policies. He wrote all these policies. Fair gaming was one of the things, a suppressive person. We'll get to that. So in 86, Hubbard dies. His son alleges that he actually died as early maybe as 1983. His son alleges that. David Miscavige, it's very Stalin-esque, Craig. He gets rid of all his competition. And I'm not suggesting that he got rid of his competition by liquidating them the way Stalin did. But the lore, let's put it that way. The lore is that he wiped out all of his competition and he took control of the organization. He then spent the next 7 years. One thing that L. Ron Hubbard could never get was tax-exempt status as a church. Because then you keep all of your money, and a very sneaky thing, religions can claim First Amendment. Well, that's part of our religious practice, and you're not allowed to criticize religion. You're not allowed to criticize our beliefs. Therefore, you can't criticize our methods because our methods have to right. So that was very eye-opening to me when I heard that from some lawyers. So 1993, this is a son of a gun thing, man. They bully the IRS, the kings of bullying. I suddenly feel like, okay, the kings of bullying. All right, tremendous bullies in the IRS. But they get their tax exempt status. How do they do it? Hundreds of lawsuits against IRS agents. Like, they bullied the IRS. They drove them crazy. This was where they started to do websites and exposés on people, Craig. So, like, I don't think this is going to happen. We simply don't have a big enough audience, and it's really another age. But it could be like Joey Medea website where I'm all these terrible things. Craig, do you know who Craig Ansel is? And he's this and that, and he does this, and when he's out on his route, he tends to do this, and we know that he's doing this, and so it's very, very scary. So they
that's why you're a legend. That's why you throw those.
They bullied them into submission and gave them tax exempt status as a church, the Church of Scientology, and it's still that way. It's still that way. So
Yeah, that was one of the things, and it's I mean it's brilliant the way that they worked out the publishing and everything of Dianetics too, to where it's like a mandatory book. It's just kind of like going to church with, it's the Bible. So Dianetics is is the Bible, and this. So you have to buy these things, and so I mean, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the number is as million as possible. Like 350 million copies of this book has been bought and sold. I sold.
Yeah,
and so that's their cash. And like I said, they own, like they're the publisher and stuff, like, so it's pure profit. And in, like you said, it's considered a religion now, so that is tax free on those things. So
it sounds like someone's typing away on a keyboard. Did you?
It might have been me. It might have been me.
Oh, okay.
Typing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like,
because
who the hell is?
Yeah, I know.
They're creating the websites as we speak. That was weird. Yeah. Let's all be careful what we say in the chat room tonight, folks, because
it could be my new microphone. I got a new microphone, folks, so it might be picking up sounds that you might not normally hear.
It sounds like a keyboard tapping. It's very interesting. Mm-hmm. So in 1982, this is the kind of power that they have. In 1982, L. Ron Hubbard comes out with a 10-volume science fiction epic named Battlefield Earth. And of course, it's heavily marketed to Scientologists, which read between the lines, everybody is required to buy this 10-volume set, which everyone kind of agrees is poorly written and repetitive. Yet, if you guys remember, and I'll get to it a little later, a very, very famous actor made a film that was an absolute bomb. It was one of the biggest bombs in Hollywood history. And I don't think it was an accident who made it and why. So anyway, Miscavige is in charge. This guy runs a really, really tight ship, but he's also married to a woman named Shelley. And in 2007, she goes missing. She had gone on a trip, I think on a mission. She was very, very high up in Sea Org. She comes back and there are allegations of tensions. And suddenly she's just gone. It is now 2025 and nobody has seen Shelley Miscavige that they can prove, certainly not publicly, since 2007, which leads to a big defection later on down the road. The church claims that she's in seclusion. It's part of her training. It's part of her auditing. It's part of her journey. I don't know, 18 years?
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
No. I said that's the thing that's really a mystery about this is even Leah Remini. She talks about it because they were friends too, and it's one, and this is one of the ones where I alluded to before. It's like there's been many calls for the FBI to go up there, and then so what it is, okay, somebody hasn't been seen for this long time, and they're like, here's this person who's very public, very out there in the public eye all the time, and all of a sudden she's gone. Nobody's seen her. Nobody answers. Nobody, what's the first thing that anybody does? Anybody that's watched true crime out there? Anybody's watching? What is the first thing you say when the wife or the husband goes missing and is never seen again? There's a body somewhere. You call, yeah. And so you call the police. They come and investigate. Basically, they literally did from anybody Silence of the Lambs. They walk and they knock on the door. Here comes Buffalo Bill. Yeah, we're looking for Shelley. Oh, there's nobody here. All right. Well, guys, yep. There's nothing here. Yeah, we checked in it. She can't be. He said she's in the back taking a nap, so we're good. And everybody's like, "What? What do you mean? Did you even check?" No. They told us she was good. I'm like, yeah. And so there's, even though there's nothing concrete that can say here's a name, here's these people that are, because that's the thing, they don't publish names of the high ups, but there's a lot of alleged, alluding to that there was probably somebody that was high up that from Scientology that was like, no, this is not something we're going to progress in, and they signed off that, she's okay. They, right. We took their word for it, everything's fine. She's there. And then now there's nothing here. So now you've got to provide evidence now for this case to even proceed. So now somebody's got to find something like a bloody somebody's got to find some evidence now, or else this thing's pretty much a cold case. It's not going to be opened up again.
Right. So minor point, Jay, from Jay, Battlefield Earth is a book. Mission Earth is the series. But Battlefield Earth is what they made the movie out of. So
Either way, it's mediocre science fiction at best.
yeah. So okay, so let's get into auditing. So here's how auditing works. First, you have to identify a problem, something that has to be audited. People have to be cured. So Tanya actually had this happen to her. She went for one.
Hold your cylinders.
They give the people the cans they're called, only cans. A guy who left Scientology after what did a Tanya and I last night watched the South Park episode, which I'll get to. And,
yeah,
they're only called cans. That's what they're called. Hold the grasp they cans. So they're 2 metal cylinders, but what they do is they just say, hey, do you want to improve your life? Do you want to take a free psychological test, personality test, see where you're at in life? Like, why don't you come on in? It's free. So they do this thing, and inevitably everybody kind of fails, and you're unhappy, and you have all this crap. And hey, for $250, you could take a course and start, and then
start working on it. Yeah,
it works. So yeah,
the e-meter.
Mark Eddy too says that he hears typing, intermittent typing. It's very strange.
Yeah, it could be mine. Here, let me mute it for a second here, and I'll find out if it goes away here. Hold on.
Okay, now come back. Yeah, we had nothing but silence, which is deadly for radio on Wednesday nights.
Okay.
We're on. So, we'll see what.
Yeah, no. Well.
Oh, it's back, I think. Yeah. Very weird. It's very, very weird. So anyway, so this is called an e-meter. It's an electropsychometer device. You hold 2 metal cylinders. You guys can see there are videos, there are commercials that they made. They're connected to the meter, and they allow microamperes of current to pass through the body. This isn't Ghostbusters with Bill Murray trying to get the date with the blonde. There's a very small amount, and it measures changes in skin resistance. So it acts somewhat like a lie detector. So you have the reader, you have the auditor who's been trained through Sea Org or some other form, paying for the training, and they ask questions, and they're very personal questions, very, very personal questions, while monitoring the needle. And so they're basically saying, okay, the dial is moving, stressful, traumatic thoughts, engrams cause fluctuations in the electrical resistance, making the needle move. And so you work past the things. So, oh, do you have a deep, dark secret? Yeah, when I used to walk home from the bus stop every day, I used to kick the neighbor's dog in the head. And then they keep working that till you've cleared and you've gone beyond it. There's an interesting artifact of that a sociologist brought up on one of the documentaries that I'll save. So yeah, the auditor is asking the questions. They use this help the subject locate problematic thoughts or past experiences. Everything is carefully cataloged. So I think I've talked on this show before, Craig. Tanya and I had a little bit of an experience with a religious cult. We were living in Arizona. It was a number of years ago. And Tanya called me from like a dollar store or something and said, I met this girl and she's great. And we hit it off. And we had left our church because when the pastor passed away, it became the church of We Take MasterCard with the Jumbotrons and the rings. And I said, we're just not doing this anymore. The kind of guys who say that Joseph, Jesus' stepfather, must have been really rich because he owned a mule, and that's like owning a Cadillac. These kind of guys, right? So we had left. So we go to this church. It's real nice, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Jeremy goes off to our son, Jeremy, who's probably, oh my gosh, couldn't have been more than 5 at the time. He goes off with the kids to I had gone to Sunday school as a Catholic, so no big deal. They're going to go off. They're going to do some things. And dude, he and I are in the grocery store on Tuesday morning, and he starts reciting scripture to me verbatim. Like blah, 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 verse 6, chapter this 5-year-old kid. Okay. Wow. And I'm like, what the actual hell? So they indoctrinated the kids. So then they invite us over to their house, and dude, nothing on the walls, very little furniture, very old cars, which that's what they say. You always know a Scientologist who isn't like famous because their cars are like really old in the parking lot. And then you have the rich cars. But anyway, and and they start asking us all these probing questions about the kind of money we make, the work we do, thing. So then we have them over to our house, dude. And the kids won't use the guest bathroom in our house because no, I know what it is. We were eating and the guest bathroom was like right off where we were eating. So we're like, oh, go use the bathroom in our master bedroom. It's fine. And the kids wouldn't use it because that's where punishment is administered in their house. Then I noticed that the kids like have like healed cigarette burns and bruises and stuff on them. Here's what happens. They say, okay, when you go to church next Sunday, after church, Joey, you're going to go with the dudes. Tanya, you're going to go with the gals, and we're going to take an inventory of your life. Every sin you've committed, every dark thought you've had. Like, and I was like, I'm a very boring dude. Like, it's going to be very boring. And they're like, oh, you'll be really surprised. Now, the previous Sunday in church, they were like, let's all pray for brother Nathan back there because apparently he's hooked on heroin and likes to sleep with prostitutes. And I was like, Tanya, what the hell is this? So, dude, we ended our association with them, but that's just how it goes. Joe Red Miles says it's coming from you, Craig.
When that's in a way that's a well-used technique, humiliation. It's because just the breaking. I mean, it's used in everything from military to everything else. That's whole part of it is where you've got to break down the individual and to make a cohesive thing. So it's like, especially for the cult, you're not going to have individuals because now, Brother Bob has been absolutely humiliated back there, and so now he's not going to speak out. He's suddenly demure, and that's I mean, you can see why they did it. It's like it's like the pastors on, televangelists where they have the person right there with the cards writing all this stuff and filtering things to the ear. It's like, so there's somebody out here that likes to sleep with prostitutes. I'm going to heal you of that right now. And just, they're writing it down on the card. Tell me all your secret thoughts.
Yeah. Plus, dude, you were talking about infiltration in key corridors of power and society. When I have a file on you and you willingly, as you're going up the bridge, as they call it, you're ascending the levels to try to get to OT, which is something operating Thetan. Thetan. Yeah. So you can get to the secret.
Yeah, and it's what a better way to control you than I know the deep dark secrets of Joey, and anytime you try to speak out, well, it'd be a shame if you stop now and people found out that you like to do this thing. Yeah. And then you're like, oh crap, man, no, it's like, you're stuck. They've got the hooks in you. I mean, this is, oh, come on, what's the term? It's that Russian technique of compromising. Yeah, where basically you sleep with the women as a politician, and now they've got you hooked. That's because now you can't speak out against it.
It's a combination of psychic driving and blackmail, really.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's get into the juicy stuff here. So you're going, you keep showing up, you're giving $200, then you're giving $1,000, then you're giving $5,000, then you're giving $10,000. And look, there are pyramid schemes, there are multi-level marketing plans. People do this. They go to the big national conventions. There's a big essential oil company where you move up the line and you become diamonds and this, and you go to the big international, and it's the jumbotrons and it's the bands, and it's scads of money. And if you're at the top, it works very well. And if you're at the bottom, you got to make your monthly nut. And if you're a late adopter, Tanya was a late adopter to this thing. So her friends who got in early, who were early adopters, they controlled all the territories. So it was very hard for everybody else. So these things exist everywhere. So anyway, you're purchasing all this and you want to get to operating Thetan. The highest level, I think, is OT9, but supposedly L. Ron Hubbard is the only one who achieved OT9. And it was super clever on the part of David Miscavige when he made the announcement to go, he's at OT9. He no longer needs his body. So he's gone like off the res, so to speak. And now I'm in charge. So what happens at OT3, and Craig, I've heard a lot of stories where people, they go to a guru and you pay, and it's the same thing, and you ascend, and you take the courses, and at the end, everybody gets their own mantra. It's your secret mantra from the guru, and no one's allowed to tell anybody their mantra. But inevitably, people go out for drinks and go, dude, I'll give you mine if you give me yours. And it's the same.
It's the same.
Yeah. So what happened was, for so many years, until South Park, if somebody could look this up for me, I neglected to put it down. I think it was maybe 2005, 2003, maybe, that South Park did their Trapped in the Closet Scientology episode.
Yeah, I think it was right there, like somewhere, because that's one of like the celebrities. That's when Isaac Hayes quit the show. Chef.
Yeah, he quit the show. Chef, right?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Skull and Bones to the Symphony's Luminary. Skull and Bones allegedly is up to no good at Yale, allegedly. But we know about his Liberation Army. So there's a lore. This is where it got weird with the ETs, and I think it was David Miscavige or Tommy Davis or one of their spokespeople famously left an interview because they asked him about this thing. But there was a galactic overlord. This really sounds like the Mission Earth, Battlefield Earth kind of sci-fi thing. There was an overlord named Xenu, and he was in charge of all these planets, and there was an overpopulation problem. So he imprisoned billions of souls in ice, and he shipped them to Earth in basically vehicles that looked a lot like a DC-8, and dropped them in volcanoes where they melted. And they escaped from the volcanoes. And then, so basically, Craig, you and I have like maybe hundreds of thousands of Thetans attached to us. And it's why we have dark thoughts. It's why we do bad things. It's why we're unhappy. So now clearing becomes not about just engrams, which are these memories that even precede birth. So some engrams are from the womb, and some engrams are for past lives. So there's a whole thing. This was a huge deal when South Park basically said, here's the secret sauce, folks. That was like a super uber big deal. Now, they fought really, really hard to not have that show air. Then Viacom owned the company that Tom Cruise was doing a movie for and doing promo, and they also owned Comedy Central, and so it never re-aired. Never re-aired. But you can find it on YouTube. The way to find it on YouTube is to watch a reaction video. So there's actually a guy, I think something Austin Smith, I believe. He's an ex-Scientologist. He and his brother were twins. So Tanya says she thinks this is around 2005. I think that was true. Shortly after that, they really started hemorrhaging high-level people. They're high-level people, Craig. Let's just run through them quickly because I think we need to. They have a celebrity center and they have a celebrity coordinator. Now, one of the celebrity coordinators happened to defect from the church, escape, leave, whatever the nomenclature is. John Travolta was the first major celebrity. He was just doing some commercials and things. He joined Scientology very early on in his life, in his career, and he started popping. He started getting commercials. Everything he auditioned for, he was getting. He believed it was because of Scientology. It was because of the clearing and all that. He landed Welcome Back, Kotter, Saturday Night Fever. All the rest was history. At one point, there were some difficulties. And allegedly, John Travolta wanted to get out, and his dossier, his file, which has a specific name in Scientology, was used against him allegedly to keep him in, and he's still in to this day. Now we have
auditing records.
Yeah, it's got a sinister name. In 2009, his son Jet died from a seizure, and there were very public allegations that their refusal to take medications and use classic traditional AMA style medical care may have contributed to his death. So that was one of those big flashpoints, you know what I mean, in the history of Scientology. And that was 4 years after. Now there's Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is the ambassador. Tom Cruise attributes his success to them. Tom Cruise, allegedly, a lot of actors have said he proselytizes when he's on set. So when you got a down moment when they're fixing the lights, he's talking to you about Scientology. There's a video that you can watch with Seth Rogen where he talks about Tom coming up to his house and talking to him for hours and hours. Now, Nicole Kidman marries Tom Cruise. They're married from 1990 to 2001. David Miscavige is his best man. He and Tom Cruise are very, very close. But Nicole Kidman is a problem. So Tom falls head over heels for her during Days of Thunder. But there's a problem. Her dad is a psychiatrist. Her dad is an enemy, and that's what they call anybody who does not support. They would deem us, Craig, enemies because we're even reporting. Here's what people have said, and here's sometimes we are now officially enemies of Scientology. That's just the way it is. She was declared a suppressed person. So here's what happened. While they were filming Eyes Wide Shut, Cruise was like all in. Kubrick is like this maniac genius. He has them locked away, I believe, in England. And Miscavige cannot reach Tom Cruise, and it drives him nuts, allegedly. So a campaign, and Mike Rinder says he was in charge of this campaign. There is a campaign to get rid of Nicole Kidman, like to separate. So when Tom gets back from Eyes Wide Shut, allegedly, he goes through exhaustive amounts of auditing. And part of the thing is he can't be married to her. He doesn't want to be married to her anymore. You know, that's what he finds through his engramming and all of that kind of thing. Their two children, then there's something called disconnection. I'm in the church. Tanya's in the church. Our three kids are in the church. One of our kids decides to leave the church. We must disconnect from them. They are a suppressive person. They have left the church. If they then speak out about the church, forget it. You must disassociate or disconnect. So we see this with Katie Holmes, right, who he married after. Allegedly, there were auditions. There were girlfriend auditions. There was one girl they spent tens of thousands of dollars on. She only lasted a couple weeks. Part of the reason she was chosen was because she was the winner of the Sell the Most L. Ron Hubbard books. So, Craig, part of the way that they drive up those book sales is that some people buy like 1,500 copies and like give them away. Or buy 1,500 copies, 2,000 copies at a time. So there are supposedly auditions. Allegedly, Scarlett Johansson and Sophie Vergara were both approached about joining the church and auditioning to be Tom Cruise's wife. They allegedly passed on that. Well, they must have passed, but allegedly that they were asked, right?
So crazy.
And this is around the time with Katie Holmes. You remember the really nutty appearance that Tom Cruise did on Oprah, where he was jumping on the couch?
I'm in love. Jumping.
Tanya, allegedly they're Sea Org members, and they don't talk to Nicole. It's a very, very strained thing. Venomous Fringe, thank you so much. Aaron Smith Levin has the channel Growing Up Scientology. That's a really good one to watch. Yes, they were twin brothers, he and his brother Colin, and there was the disconnecting, and then his brother died in a car accident. Heartbreaking. And we hear these things. Oh, by the way, your kid, who you haven't spoken to in 10 years because you chose Scientology over your children, died.
Yep.
Sorry. And not allowed to see them. Kiss the forehead. We saw an interview with one woman who was high up. So Holmes allegedly plans the divorce secretly. She escapes, files for sole custody of Suri. Cruise never mentioned Suri ever.
Yeah.
Katie left. She took the kid. They're not in Scientology. They're disconnected. They're suppressive people. This is what other church does that?
One that's real close to it is the Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, really?
It's called disfellowship. So if you do something like that and you're kicked out of the church, you're disfellowshipped, and you're basically your persona non grata. You're a dead person. You are dead, and they're not allowed to associate with you anymore because you're dead. You can't. And so it's really close to, in that aspect of the same way. It was like you're disconnected. They base, Miscavige's dad's that same way. It's like he doesn't have anything to do with his dad.
Right. That's right. Who has spoken out, and of course,
he's spoken out about it, and so they're disconnected.
That's right. That's right. So here's something that you can go and look at: strange behavior, chilling. Scientology indoctrination video from 2008. So this was an in-house video that was made for an event honoring Tom Cruise with the Freedom Medal of Valor. I think, Craig, my take on it, if I was to write it, this is how I would write it. When he left the fold with Nicole and was moving further and further away and got brought back in, got separated, I think David Miscavige wanted to do something to go, Tom, you're our guy. You are our guy. And so they invent this thing, the Freedom Medal of Valor. Sounds like something you would hear in a Jack Black, like Tenacious D song, the Freedom Medal of Valor, you know?
Yes.
So he talks about Scientology. And you ever see Tom Cruise where he bursts into that hysterical laughter?
Yeah.
He does that. Yeah, watch the video, guys. It's not that long. I think it's about 9. It's called Scientology Indoctrination video. And then watch the Freedom Medal of Valor ceremony. And anywhere in Scientology, there are these big portraits of L. Ron Hubbard. So, of course, at their big ceremonies and all, there are these big portraits. Tom Cruise turns and he salutes LRH. That's what they call them, because everything's acronyms, man. SPs and FG and LRH. So one of the people also who got out, he's in a 2015 HBO documentary, which you should definitely watch, is Paul Haggis, the director. He got out. Finally, he couldn't stand it because 2 of his daughters are LGBT, and that's a no-no. It's in the literature.
So the doc,
yeah, it's in that literature, which may play into why some people have been forced to stay when they don't want to, because there are secrets. And
I think that's the big one. Is the secrets.
The Scientology episode was called "Trapped in the Closet," and they're like, "Oh, so and so's in the closet. Come out of the closet." So.
Yeah, it's that was a dig at Travolta too.
I think both. Yeah.
They really digged, like I said with that one. Yeah. I think one of the biggest things for me is, like, through the research I found, is when you follow like the documentary, like with Leah Remini and other ones, what it is when you reach the top, what they at that time was, I think it was like level 8.
Yeah.
It's like, and and this is where this one, let me know if I'm jumping ahead here on this thing, but what happens is, this is where, as inevitably happens, like in a lot of these things, like the cultish type thing, is once they run out of stuff, they've got to come up with, they got to keep people there. And so apparently there's this undiscovered, RLH manuscript that's, it's like this. And right now it seems that anybody that achieves this and can see this, instantly they're like, this is it? Seriously?
Yep.
And they're like, I'm out. Yep. And then they walk away. And so it seems like once people reach this point, they're just kind of like, oh, dude, and they see themselves out at this point. Once they reach it, once they're brought into the secret vault and they get a look at the next information, the final piece, it'd be kind of like going to the Masons. Like, you become a Mason, you get to the 33rd degree type thing, and you go in there, and all it is they open it up and it's a plastic decoder ring, and you're like, this is it. This is the epitome of what I've been working for. And then they're like, yeah. Walk away.
What is it in the Christmas Story? Drink more. It's not Ovaltine, but something like Ovaltine.
Yeah, it's got
Drink more. What? And he comes out and he's just totally, the Ron Miscavige book for our ERT radio audience, audio only. Ruthless Scientology, My Son David Miscavige and Me. Ron died in 2021, so a lot of these people now are passing. But the work is out there. So at least
Michelle, thank you for that.
At least 6, yes, thank you. At least 6 high level people have have left and spoken out. One of the big one, Mike Rinder, which can somebody and I don't question Jay at all, but can somebody just confirm that someone else that Mike Rinder passed recently? So let's see here. And Mike Rinder had a blog, all that kind of stuff. We're getting down to the end here. So here are some of the big allegations. I'll just do that. Here are some allegations that there's surveillance and harassment, that there's physical and mental abuse by David Miscavige, forced labor, and controlling members through their family. The books and the auditing it will cost you. So people like Leah Remini, people like Tom Cruise who can afford these things, it costs to try to reach OT8, and most people don't get there. Is 250,000 up to 360,000, up to millions, because you have to donate, you have to attend, you have to buy the books. Leah Remini says that she spent, I think, millions of dollars or $1 million. People are then, Craig, you run out of material. Then Dave Miscavige comes out allegedly and says, we've discovered new documents, or we've perfected a new technique. You have to go back, say you're OT6, you have to go back to OT1, and you have to pay all that stuff.
And do it again. And I think they're up to OT15 now.
They publicly release them because
this is what I've seen. This what like I said, allegedly, it's one of those things you see. Anybody can create a document for them, but I've seen several ones that are published where it looks like they process chart that they can go up to like a fate level of 15 now, which would make sense because if you have people, oh no, keep doing this, and then yet you got to keep leveling up.
Thank you.
And it's,
for that confirmation.
Yeah.
That's sinister. That's just sinister. Yeah, because supposedly L. Ron Hubbard had written those levels, but they hadn't gone. But if you're going to keep people around, especially because they took away the decoder ring at OT3. I mean, I was stunned. South Park basically, ruined their whole shtick as far as OT. That was ballsy, man.
Oh yeah,
that was ballsy.
You think about it, it's just because now when you have somebody like David Miscavige who is basically, in all sense, like the god, the head prophet, the one that sees it, when he comes out and says, I have discovered this thing, this was lost, and but this was information that we've just found. Who's going to question it?
Right.
Who's going to question? You bring forth the stuff, and people are like, wow, and it comes in, and you got people that they're all in. They don't even question. They're like, man, this must have been. And then, it's once again, it's a continuation of bad science fiction. It's like, I give them the credit. They're consistent. It's not, the science fiction isn't improving at all. They're keeping it pretty consistent here.
It's kind of like those really bad episodes, so Harlan Ellison, had things to say about L. Ron Hubbard and wrote Star Trek episodes. It's like those Star Trek episodes where there's like a really bad corrupt religion that's taken over a planet, and it's a total corruption of what religion should be. That's kind of the nexus point for this. Again, allegations of spying on people, intimidating their critics. Journalists have told absolute horror stories where they've been sued, where like their lives were financially ruined. They go through people's garbage. They're followed by, you can see it. And I think it was kind of a mistake that they did it. So Mike Rinder and Leah Remini are doing Scientology in the Aftermath, which was 37 episodes. Tanya and I have only watched 11. We've watched 11 so far. And Craig, I will have to say I cry every episode because the shame, the guilt, the powerlessness, kids who were sexually molested. And nobody did anything about it. There were 2 girls on the first episode of season 2 of Scientology in the Aftermath who talked about, one, their parent, one, someone who they say is still a high up respected member of Scientology. They brought these girls in, closed door, of course, but during the taping of the show, to talk to detectives. and nothing was ever done. Nothing was ever.
Yeah, because this is one of those big, just what we're going into, and this is one of those big alleged things, everybody. So allegedly, the rumor is that a lot of funding for the local PD comes from the church. That's part of the reason that a lot of these things get kind of not, that because of the amount. Because if you ever go to Clearwater, you'll see there's buildings. They have a huge building right in the center, and then you can tell by the roofs. The roofs all kind of match, and you can see all these buildings. Well, they have such a huge presence, like, money wise, that goes into the community, that they've got a pull, and so that pull helps them in. This is all allegedly, folks. This is allegedly, they have a pull with the council, with the city, that keeps them to where they're like, if something, it's pretty much, even though, because you'll see like these documentaries, that's why, like Leah and stuff, they can't go, they keep getting, the police will show up.
Yeah.
When they're doing, and that's why, is because they've kind of got this thing, police come in, they don't really ever do anything to the Scientology people. They're like, okay, guys, just, hey, why don't we just go over here? Let's go in, and they shuttle them away, and that's where the alleged thing is, that they've got connections in the higher ups in the community. But there's no proof. There's no legitimate proof other than it's just, it's what you see with your eyes, but that doesn't hold up in court.
Here's another one. Miriam Francis has a channel called Rage Against the Dark Arts. Definitely, folks, go out and watch. That's the best thing that we can have you do. Tanya was right about all the allegations. Charles, on the documentaries, they have sociologists, they have cult specialists. The guy who wrote The Cult of Trump, Steve Hassan, I think his name is, very, very articulate guy. He grew up in the Moonies, Craig, and had to get deprogrammed and all. These guys really talk about how this works, because even Leah Remini can't really articulate what happened to her, and it happened to her. So it's a tough thing. So they really bring on these experts, which is really, really good too. Let's see here. So here's another thing. The high-level executives, Miscavige, really in a very Stalin-like move, put them in something called the Hole. 2 double-wide trailers, I believe, on the compound of Gold Base, what they call Gold Base, Craig, which is one of their big compounds, where these people live in squalid conditions amongst maggots. They sleep on the floor. They eat slop. They work all the time. Allegedly, these things happen.
Yes.
All these high-level execs could be lying. They could be. The church says that this is all a money grab.
It's all money grab. It's a slander by these people, and
But they're basically, it's some people have referred to it as Lord of the Flies. So allegedly, they have to beat each other up, because allegedly, David Miscavige, if he asked you to do something, one executive said that this allegedly happened. People were starting to protest in big numbers in LA.
I think the crazy, and this is when I saw it on a Reddit post, it said the same thing as like Wikipedia, Reddit isn't exactly, the most, go-to thing. But the way they phrased it was, they said, think of it in the way of like Kim Jong-un in North Korea. David Miscavige is like that to Scientology. He is like the supreme leader. And basically you have these people that just, they basically worship the feet of him as, he's like a deity type thing. It just, and there's a lot of people, that's how this is. So it's one of those, if you ever see the things that Kim Jong-un's there and you got all the people just clapping as he goes into like a volleyball type thing. It's kind of like that thing. When he shows up, there's just people that they're just like, oh my God, he's here, and to somebody that like ourselves that are outside of it, we're like, what is going on? This is insane, watching this thing. But you ask them, it's like, are you being mistreated? Oh my God, no, this is, I love it here. It's just, and you're like, and then you get somebody like, and then you watch that program like with Leah, and then you get the other side, like, no, this is what's going on. And just, we're trying to, it's just, you're trying to deprogram some of these people and get them out. But yeah, you look at these places, you watch like YouTube, you can look it up. There's a guy, he goes out there and he openly stands in front of their celebrity centers. I think he's at the one at Clearwater. He does. There's one in Clearwater I know of. I think the one that he's at is in either LA or Vegas or something like that. And he's out there saying, this is a cult. This is a cult. Don't go in there, because it has a sign, free personality test.
Right.
That's how they get you. That's how they get you in there. They'll sit there, and basically one guy went in undercover, and I think he was there for 4 hours watching all these videos, and it was just like hard sell the entire time. And it's one of his biggest questions, like he says out here, if this truly is a religion, why do they have to have that hook of a free personality test? If it truly is, if they say it's a religion like they do, but no, it seems like just a bait and switch thing. It's like, this is the hook to get you in the door, and then we got you.
But I think a lot of religions do that, right? So fundamentalist religions where you have to go out and, and the Mormons, you're passing stuff, or Jehovah's Witnesses, you're passing stuff out on the boardwalk, pamphlets and this and that and the other.
Yep.
Preachers will go to homeless shelters and administer to people, but also talk to them and stop by the church. Maybe I can help you. So, I mean, religions do that, but this is absolutely a warped version. So as I was saying, like, people wanted to protest. So David Miscavige says to one of his really high up level guys, I want you to go to the county of LA and I want you to get permits for us to tear up all our sidewalks. And they're all like, what? And so he goes, and of course they laugh in his face, and he comes back, and Miscavige isn't in the boardroom or the meeting room. And the guys go, so how'd you make out? He's like, they said no. Of course they said no. Miscavige jumps on the table, jumps on him, and punches him in the face. So like 5 or 6 of these high-level executives said that he administered several beatings to these guys. So it allegedly, but that's what these guys say. So allegedly is implied. That's what these guys say. I certainly was not a top executive in Scientology, so this isn't first person. One person at least. It's really tough with mental illness, like when Tom Cruise went on Matt Lauer, remember, infamously, and said to Matt, "Oh, come on, Matt, all these drugs, Adderall, all this postpartum depression is a myth," So Brooke Shields got all upset. What they do, and L. Ron Hubbard in their documentation, and guys, we saw it on the documentary, so I'm sure you can find it on someone's website, basically said that he cured someone of mental illness by locking them in a room for 4 days. So that's what they do when people like manic depressive or bipolar and on Leah's show.
Yeah, that interview too is like Cruise, it was like a Saul Alinsky type of tactic where it was just attack. And it's just like, basically, what are you going to, you don't have the time, you're not going to fire back. You don't have the second, you basically just take it. But at the same time, you throw just enough stuff that sound, they're right there. You can tell these are rehearsed things that they know. It's just like boom, 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 boom. And it's just like, yeah, it was pretty telling. Cause I mean, you can see from the beginning, it's like with Dianetics, it's yin and yang to modern, accepted science. And what they say is like, you can basically talk your way out of these problems.
Yeah.
Why take medication? No, you need to go audit. You need to get rid of these thetans that are weighing you down. If you just do these things, you're not going to need this, you don't need this pill, because that's one of the things they always talk about. A lot of these interviews, they talk about Ritalin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Adderall,
Ritalin,
all those kinds of things. Meanwhile, they're separating, indoctrinating, and abusing children. So there was this one woman in 1995, Lisa McPherson. She died while in Scientology care. She had tried to leave. She had mental health issues. She got in a minor car accident. In order to not go back and to get basically arrested so she could get to a hospital, she started disrobing on the street. And they put her in the hospital, and the Scientologists came to get her. Something out of the First Amendment, religious freedom, they have the right to come and claim people if they can talk them into leaving, you know what I mean? And then the medical neglect went on for weeks, and they rushed her to a hospital. And then Craig, as we have seen with other with cults, the autopsies got cooked. They got changed. Yeah, it was coercion.
Oh, yeah, because there's most likely somebody's in the coroner's office. There's that's going to be connected. That's the thing I alluded that to in the beginning. It's just they knew what they were doing. I mean, they have an army of lawyers. They have all these people. They like if they know, like in the LA area, they've got people in government there, in public offices all over the place, because if you have these people, they can prevent anybody ever trying to pry into what they're not supposed to be there. You got these people that can just keep pushed away, because it's, once again, I need a building permit. Well, when you've got Bob, who's part of the church in there, he's like, oh yeah, no, that's all legit. Yeah, I'm going to sign off on it. It's done. Now nobody has to go in physically into the building and do the inspection, because Bob is part of the, code enforcement. And he's like, no, they're all good. They're all good. He signs off on all these things. And now you don't have eyes that shouldn't be inside of a place doing these things. And that's how they get away with a lot of the stuff.
Allegedly, though. We don't know that Bob, the LA County building inspector, works for Scientology.
That's right.
All
names are purely coincidental.
We're getting to the end here. We talked about Leah Remini a lot. She left in 2013. She started to. She was always kind of a troublemaker. She's a kid from New York. She's very brash. I love with her talk. Oh
yeah.
Her heavy accent. All these years later. She asked where Shelley was. It was a major event, and she was told, you don't ask about Shelley, you don't ask about anything. Meanwhile, she had been a very as she was growing up and getting in the business, she was very much a face of Scientology. You can see all kinds of videos and interviews that she did with journalists where she kind of lied through her teeth, or was so indoctrinated that she believed what she was saying, even though it was very much company line. But anyway, when she left in 2013, she did, and Craig, you alluded to this, she filed a missing persons report with the LAPD about Shelley Miscavige, who by that time had been not seen in public for 7 years. And they said that it was completely unfounded and that a representative had visited Shelley and she was fine. Not the police, but a representative.
Yeah, somebody that was up there said, oh no, I saw her, like I said, and they just take their word for it. Yeah.
Thank you, Tanya. Everything we say tonight is totally allegedly. There you go.
Yes.
Totally allegedly.
Yeah, it's
allegedly.
There's a lot of air quotes here, people that are listening.
Now, if you want to look at Leah's work, we've talked about the 37 episode documentary Scientology in the Aftermath. Bring a box of tissues, because if you're human, you're gonna cry. Because and I give Mike Rinder so much credit, because he was sort of the Himmler of Scientology. Like, he destroyed lives. He tried to talk Tom Cruise. He tried to talk John Travolta out of doing Pulp Fiction, because it wouldn't be good for the church for him to play, a heroin addict contract killer. That
was one of his best roles.
Yeah. Well, that's what he said. I would have been a terrible agent. But I'm sure there were times where they told Tom Cruise, stay away from this, stay away from that. This is the last thing I want to say, because it was so shocking. And it really, so the church used to have like 150,000 people. Now it's got like 40,000. It is kind of dying. But I don't think fast enough. And Dave Miscavige and so many other people have still not been brought to any kind of justice or been thoroughly enough. Even when Kate Middleton went missing, they put out photographs. They put out video, whatever the truth was. And there are some very interesting, very dark theories about what was really going on with her. They made an effort to quell people's suspicions. Even if it was like, oh no, that's an outfit that she wore like 3 years ago. It's obviously photoshopped. They didn't always get it right, but they made the effort. You know what I mean? They made the effort. But in anyway, January 2023 at the Golden Globe Awards, host Jared Carmichael said, and I quote, "Backstage, I found these 3 Golden Globe Awards that Tom Cruise returned because he was protesting lack of diversity in Hollywood. Clever. I think maybe we take these 3 things and exchange them for the safe return of Shelley Miscavige." A lot of us thought for sure, oh, this is going to open the whole, like he said the thing, like Jared Carmichael said the thing, Shelley Miscavige. Nothing came of it. Nothing came of it. And it's hard to watch the documentary, Craig, because I think it ended in 2019. I think it started in 2017 and ended in 2019. So we're now 6 years later, and they go, hopefully something's going to change. Millions of people watch that show. There are books, there are other documentaries, there are websites. Nothing has substantially changed.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know that's one of the things, like especially like, I don't know, it's hard to say it this way. I mean, it's just, but third world and stuff like that, that's where they seem to still have their draw. Is for Scientology. Yeah. They're bringing, there's a lot of people that are coming from outside the US that are being brought in to these things, working these things. That if you go like Clearwater, you'll see buses of people coming off there, and it's you can definitely tell there's just diversity wise, there is there's definitely more from other nations that are here as opposed to just like locals from the US. These are and that seems to be the draw for those ones. But that being said, it's one of those, like you said, the numbers seem to be coming down. But I think that's one of the, because it's also across the board. I think there's been, religion has been kind of, tapering off for a few years. But I don't know. It's one of those things. There's a lot of people just like questions, and when you have things like this that aren't answered, it's just it doesn't help when like Leah Remini, where is she? And nobody, there's no response.
Right. And no indictments and no real investigations. So we still have 26 episodes of the show to watch. I'm pretty hooked. Oh
yeah, you'll like them.
So you watched all 37 episodes? Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
Yeah, with me and the wife. Yeah, we watched them all. Me and Becky. And the thing is, they're pretty intense, because it's that same thing. It's just because you're seeing people that what she'll talk about these things, and these people are in the same boat like where she was.
Yep.
And it's the attitude is like, you could see the train coming. It's going to be the wreck's coming. But you can't convince people to get off the track.
No.
The bridge is out. You're trying to tell them, it's like, look, don't do this. And you can just see their faces that they're in. Their soul has been sold. They've signed the billion year contract, and they're in, and they're not going to just willingly. Charles said it. How does somebody that spent their, a massive fortune and all these years of their life in there, you're not going to just one day just wake up and just, be like, oh yeah, I decided not to do it. No, you're stuck. You're stuck. It takes something like going in and finding the plastic decoder ring is the epitome of what you've done for it to be like, that's your wake up call. But after that, how many lives have you destroyed, including your own?
Yeah. That's what, and I think that's why you and I keep coming back to these Sinister Ministries, because they're repetitive, but I think that's instructive. So that's that parallels and patterns, and we're going to do those. Real is odd because it's lies about human cloning and really deep, dark stuff on the sexual abuse end of the spectrum with kids and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a rough go. And The Family in America is also instructive on infiltrating the halls of power, because that's their whole thing. That's their whole oeuvre, is to be very connected with government. So next week, Craig and I are going to be very topical, and we're going to look at Stargate Project and DeepSeek.
Yes,
which is really blowing things up. Craig, is an interesting thing at first, and I gotta rush off and get to a meeting, and we've gone almost 90 minutes, but it's a really, really interesting thing. None of the Silval boys are Scientologists, but it makes perfect sense. They worship their own thing, which is technology. And all of those guys are David Miscavige level in their own little world, the Peter Thiels and, the Elon
Ellison.
Musk. Yeah, so they're not going to bow the knee to, no one's going to walk into a room and beat up Peter Thiel because he didn't, no one's going to go into a room and beat up Sam Altman because the Chinese got a drop on him with DeepSeek, which was crazy, right? The billions of dollars that tech lost, and that was a coup, man.
I told Joey, I go, this feels like Chernobyl. Not Chernobyl. Oh, come on, my brain. It's the. Everybody help me out. I don't know why my brain
I
just.
want to help you.
It's the satellite. Come on, the Russian satellite.
Oh, not Sputnik. Was it Sputnik?
Sputnik.
Yeah,
Sputnik. Yes, the Sputnik.
Yeah, it's a technology.
Yeah, it just feels like it's like the Silicon Valley version of a Sputnik moment. All of a sudden, this thing hit, and it was just like, oh crap, they're there. It's just what we've been theorizing. They just did, and so.
Yeah, I mean, it really shook things. Now Elon's got a $97.5 billion buyout offer for ChatGPT, and he'll only, Sam Altman, OpenAI, who makes ChatGPT, and he'll only withdraw the offer if they stay nonprofit, that's what he was one of the founders of OpenAI, Elon Musk. And it was called OpenAI because it was supposed to be open source nonprofit, which is what DeepSeek is. But the government of, I think, of Virginia has banned DeepSeek on all their computers. But so we got a lot to talk about next week. I'm really looking forward to it.
It's going to be good. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you all. I got to run off. Really, the numbers have stayed, and the numbers keep going up. We've been here for almost 90
Appreciate
minutes.
it.
So
yeah.
We will
Appreciate it, everyone.
Next week. Remember, allegedly, go out there. You can burn 40, 50, 60 hours of your life researching that stuff. Yeah. So, and watch the South Park, because that was ballsy. And it's funny. Oh my God.
They take it right on. They don't do the allegedly thing. It is over. Just bam, they're in their face.
Yeah, and they go a little sideways with some of the allegations. Yeah, so all right, peace everyone. Craig, it's always an honor to work with you, brother.
Yes, it's an honor, sir.
No. I don't want to do that. Not yet. Okay, there's the not yet button for idiots like me. So here we go, little puppet man. See you next week.
Do you have a sinister mystery in mind? Let us know by sending us a DM or comment in the chat. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Till next time, stay mysterious.